everybody. Welcome back to the monthly update. Let's jump in to a little show and tell, and we're going to talk through a couple different areas. We're going to get started with latest updates from the big models. Okay, so first up, ChatGPT, OpenAI dropped a ton, of course, over the last time that we talked. This is probably the biggest one, though, in my mind, is that they introduced apps inside of ChatGPT and this thing called the Apps SDK. Think of it as the way for ChatGPT to interact with any application. And so there's definitely a sprint going on right now, if you will, for companies, I think, to prepare to be able to be in this, what is essentially a new app store. So you've got 800 million users of ChatGPT. They can all now interact with these existing applications, websites, etc., directly inside of ChatGPT. How do you start preparing your organization or your company to be able to take advantage of this? Then you've got their first biggest partner, I would say, is Walmart. So they are going all in on this AI for shopping experience, Sam's Club as well. And so I expect to see a lot more coming forth about what exactly this is going to look like, how deeply embedded is it going to be, and what is it going to enable. They've got some questions in here if you want to go into this and learn a little bit more. So definitely pay attention to what Walmart is up to. Then we've got Claude in Sonnet 4.5, huge advancement, especially when it comes to coding. So jumps back ahead, I think, to being the best coding model in the world. Right now, though, we've got a lot of different preferences depending on the developer and what's trying to get done. But what really jumped out at me for this one is how this model is actually able to run for quite some time. They talk about how they've observed it maintaining focus for more than 30 hours on complex multi-step task. So really starting to push the boundaries of how complex of a task can you give it? How well does it do? Can it self-fix, self-advise as it works through whatever that problem might be? And then another one from ChatGPT is that instant checkout and this idea of the agentic commerce protocol. So this is combined with those applications. This is really the part that I think Walmart is probably leaning into the most right now. And it's when you've got ChatGPT, its ability to go and find what you're looking for, and then you can just buy it directly inside of ChatGPT or any other agent for that matter. Things really start to shift. And so if you are a company that sells directly to a consumer and probably to a business in the not so distant future, this is something to be paying attention to, because people are going to be having their agents go and do their research and potentially even buy things on their behalf. And this is a step in that direction. All right, so next we're going to talk about some of the things that are going on inside of these larger organizations. Citi came out and said that it is requiring AI prompt training for hundreds of thousands of employees. I would love to see the inside of this program. About 175,000 people. I mean, this is a ton of people to go and take through this. We have our own version of this that we've rolled out, but we're a fraction of what they're talking about here. And so I really like how they're coming out and saying that this is a new way of working, and that, training is a practical guide to mastering a specific skill. And so at a glance, it looks like it's mostly focused on prompting, which I think is a fantastic skill for people to learn. But I personally think a more important skill to be teaching people on right now is just thinking about how to be working with AI, which, yes, it has something to do with prompting, but it's really a reframe of how we engage with technology and what we're able to give it to enable it to help us as much as it possibly can. The OpenAI Academy has launched recently, and they produced this guide, ChatGPT for Any Role. So if you maybe don't have one of these programs stood up, leverage the resources that are out there from the OpenAIs, the Anthropics of the world. They all have fantastic guides. So this is a great set of prompts that have come from ChatGPT and OpenAI itself. It talks about, they've got all these other guides that can help drive that adoption. And so I highly recommend leaning into these guides that already exist. And of course, if you need some extra help, don't be a stranger. All right, so now let's switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk about culture, AI-generated video, influencers, personalities, actresses. So I'm sure you've seen the headlines floating around this month, but we've got AI-generated actress Tilly Norwood, who was making the rounds, And this is just bringing up really interesting conversations about what is creativity, what can you license, what are synthetic performers, and so forth. So I recommend clicking through this one. I'll see if I can dig up some examples. The part that stood out to me the most was actually this quote right here, saying, "She's not a replacement for a human being, but a creative work, a piece of art." And I really think that that's what is emerging, is that it's not a replacement by any stretch of the imagination to people. It's just something new. It's a new form of creative expression. And I personally don't think that it's going to go away. I do think that people are going to subscribe to these AI performers. I think that that's going to be a huge business that will be out there in the world. I think it's got a whole host of philosophical conversations that come with it, but we've been through these shifts where technology enables us to create things that we just couldn't ever create before. And I think this is another great example. And so we're really wrestling with it because it feels so close to who we are, quite literally, as people. So definitely watch this space. Also, in this world of AI generated content and how things are shifting, Spotify has come out and said that it's working with labels on responsible AI music tools, excuse me. And so they're making this sort of like generative AI research lab. It's pretty light on details so far about what it's going to look like. My hunch is that it probably has something to do with protecting the artists and the safety of the underlying IP that they essentially own as the creators of these things. And then down here at the bottom, it talks about how AI has already come under challenge at Spotify because of its version of AI slop on the platform, and they already have some other AI products that have been released. So will be pretty interesting to see ultimately where this plays out. And then also this month, OpenAI is dealing with its own version of copyright infringement after the launch of Sora 2, which honestly let anybody create a video of anybody, which has caused some problems, that's for sure. We're going to talk about here in a little bit. But specifically, they've been called out for allowing people to generate videos of Martin Luther King Jr. and use his likeness to make videos. And I'm sure you saw a bunch about Sam Altman, seen plenty of Donald Trump videos and other public-facing figures, which a lot of previous video models would not allow you to do. Sora kind of opened the floodgates on that one, and I was happy to see this come through, and I fully expect that there's going to be more of these on the horizon. Now, we can't talk about things, video generation, image generation, or really interacting with AI at all without talking about safety. This is a big topic this month, both for children as well as adults. And so California has just come out and signed into law a new bill that is going to regulate chatbots in order to protect children. So generally, I think that this is probably a pretty good thing. We'll see how it's actually rolled out and enforced, but it looks like it's going to mandate that these platforms put these safeguards in place so that it's going to redirect kids to the right place. I would make the argument this should be in place for everybody, period. But of course, I'm not on these internal steering teams. And so I think the thing for you guys as senior leaders and executives to really keep in mind is, one, what data are the models that you're using? Where is it coming from? What are these regulations? What do you need to be paying attention to, especially as it comes to external stuff that you're facing? Thinking marketing teams, social teams, etc. What are they able to do? And really, where do you want to draw that line? Next up, let's look at what is happening in the world of research. I like to bring this in because the studies that are happening are either showing us where we're heading or if what we've been doing is actually working. And so the first one up is in retail in particular. And this research in particular says, yes, AI is generating value in field experiments for online retail. This paper walks through a bunch of those examples. And also what I wanted to show you today is I've been using Comet more as my browser because it has a baked in assistant. I think if you're using Edge at this point in time, Chrome soon, possibly others, this will become pretty standard for a browser, but it allows you to just, on top of any website, pull this up and start asking some questions. And so I would say the key takeaways here is that yes, it can deliver these productivity gains, but really revenue gains. And kind of what I was expecting was that the benefits really are for these smaller, less experienced retailers because they're able to do these optimizations that they just wouldn't have done otherwise. And so maybe the gains aren't necessarily as big, but for them, they're really huge. And then, of course, it depends on the workflow. It's domain specific, but looking at the usage and what's possible, it's becoming more and more commonplace in really a lot of the areas that you would expect. Now, related to this, I think one of the applications for retailers as well, or any business where there is a purchase happening, is that this study is showing that LLMs can reproduce some human purchase intent if they're using a very specific technique in this case. This is one of the more common things that we're getting asked about now. Can we build these synthetic consumers? Can we build these digital avatars, things that can leverage research and data and then act as if they're a consumer to test ideas against? And so this study says, yes, but you've got to do it in a specific way using this thing called semantic similarity ratings. And in that case, it can predict up to 90% accuracy with what a human would do. And frankly, not surprising because we're pretty variable ourselves. Like we're not really a structured data set that sits inside of Excel and we make the same decisions over and over again. There's so many factors that go into play, and it would be next to impossible, I think, to predict all of these things. 90% is pretty good, especially because this framework is pretty scalable and generally low cost to be able to run and just add to existing consumer research that's going on. So if you're in the world of insights, definitely recommend checking this one out. Now let's take a look at this paper that came out. This talks about how do you get models to be more diverse. So last one, really simple, single prompt thing. This article, research paper, really explores how do you design a system that has agents with different personalities to drive that creativity. So that's really what it explores. It looks at creative tasks where maybe you've got, you just have different types of personas in here. So for example, philosopher, designer, activist. They showed that when you do this, it doubles the creative diversity coming out of the system that you've really created in there. And so it's not about randomness, it's really about creating these intentional designs. And whether you're trying to optimize for creativity or just performance of the system, we're having much more results when you don't just rely on one agent. You've got multiple agents, specific roles, doing different things that then come together to create the output that you're trying to create. So I think that that's really the path that we're heading down from here on out. So next, let's talk about another paper that came out. This one looked specifically at security. So forward this one on to your security team. And if you want to go deeper on this, we'd love to chat. But you can see here, they've just been mapping out different papers that are related to the different types of threats, defenses, applications, and papers that support or at least give some directionality around what to go and do. So this is just a really helpful roll-up of the security research that's come out so far, specifically around agents. And then this paper might be the most important paper that I think has come out in a little while. And I say that because I think that it gives us some direction into where we're heading. And really what it looks at is if we've got agents that are now acting on our behalf, markets start to shift and behave differently, because you could argue that firms really have emerged as a way to capture value in all the friction costs that happen with doing something. So for example, if I want to go manufacture a new microphone, I've got to go talk to a bunch of different suppliers and then get it to a manufacturer, and then I've got to ship it over here. So I'm more than happy to pay somebody, a company, who's willing to go and do that. But who's to say if I have an agent that can go and find other people who now need the same thing, and those agents can self-organize and go and procure that thing for me, we have something different that's showing up, because the cost of the agent doing that is going to end up being close to zero. And so when you have these agents acting on behalf of people and that friction cost is going down, other challenges that emerge. You've got all these agents that could be creating congestion. You've got a bunch of other costs that could just frankly disappear. But then you have to wonder, well, how many agents do I have? How do I orchestrate them together? what's the trust layer between all of them. So anyways, this paper does a really fun job of breaking down some of these considerations that could be emerging based on what we're seeing today and some of those trends that are happening. And you could just start to think about this a little bit with what we've seen on the shopping front, like we talked about earlier, where that friction for shopping, me needing to go to a bunch of websites and a bunch of different things to do my research before I make a purchase, that cost is going down because I can just offload it to an agent. Markets are gonna need to start to shift, and companies and the role that they play in those markets could and probably will as well. So definitely recommend deep diving into this one a little bit. All right, moving on, other places that we're starting to see generative AI and agents come into applications that we use on a day-to-day basis. Elon tweeted that, I think we still call them tweets, posted that Grok is now going to create its own algorithm essentially per person by reading every post and watching every video, and then matching it to the specific account to determine whether or not it's going to show you the content that's going to be there. So as far as I know, this is really the first time that we're going to see a large language model driving this type of algorithm at this scale and in production. So I'd say an experiment worth paying attention to when it happens. All right, last but certainly not least, our demo/fun section. So I just wanted to show off a couple of things because I think demos are a great way to really bring to life how fast we're moving. So this is a Wall Street hackathon building with LLMs and a couple examples that came out of it. So this is an automated trading pipeline that monitors the dark web for ransomware attacks and then looks for the financial impact on public companies to determine what to trade on. Pretty fascinating. All this stuff was built in, 24 hours, a weekend? Yeah, pretty wild. This one is looking at, they ran a model locally, so it's running and real-time transcribing earnings calls and then making trading decisions based on it. So talk about speed there. Virtual data room, we hear about this one a lot just when it comes to acquisitions or raising capital. Spend management tool, great. Investment researcher. So pretty amazing to see how really what can be built over the course of a couple of days using the technology that we've got today. Another post that I found super helpful just to show you how fast things are moving. This is in the last 30 days. And like they said, it really was an AI product launch war that we watched happen. So you've got Anthropic, they dropped a bunch of models. OpenAI comes back 24 hours later. We're going to talk about Sora 2 here again in a second. Google comes back, they launched some new stuff at home. Perplexity says, oh my gosh, okay, let's release our browser for free. Then we've got OpenAI demo day that happens the next week. They launch new model or more advanced model, the shopping stuff, the agent stuff we showed earlier, Sora 2, Codex gets better, they're expanding. Google does a bunch of launches a couple days later. Anthropic then launches a week later. Then 2 weeks later, we just have a rapid fire. This is the week that I'm recording this. Everything just kept coming out. And I think this is the pace that we're just going to see happen. It's great for us as consumers, users, builders of the technology. I can't imagine what it's like inside of these companies today. So one of those releases that came out is ChatGPT Atlas. So if you haven't tried an agentic browser yet and you're a ChatGPT user, go and check this out. This is like going on the web with ChatGPT as your sidekick. It can go do quite a bit. So I've been running some experiments with it, booking flights, doing research, summarizing research papers, seeing how far can I push it to go and take actions on my behalf. It's definitely an early product, but I think it's something worth playing around with. Another app that got launched over the course of the last month or so is this thing called Vibes from Meta. They're trying to get into short form AI generated videos and make it social. So I don't know where this is going to go. I don't see how this is any different from just opening up Midjourney or Sora and seeing what's out there. But if you've got this, curious how you're playing around with it, what you think about it. Also in the video space, moving super fast, Sora, this is from OpenAI, released a mobile app to generate these videos. They hit 1 million downloads in less than 5 days. So there's a faster growth than ChatGPT. Pretty wild how fast these models are going. So let's check out what they can do today. So here's some examples from the latest models we've got here. Sora 2, Grok, VO, etc. So people are making short films, all AI generated. The quality of these things are just really mind-blowing. A Pixar short made this thing in 8 days using AI. So just the power of this for people who are already experts in this space is incredible. And then people who have always wanted to create, being able to build and make stuff at this level is just so exciting to me. So fun thread here, lots of examples. I'll let you guys go ahead and click through. VO3, so this is the latest one from Google. You can just see the quality here is off the charts. And if you're at home and you've got the video turned on too, or sorry, the audio just keeps getting better. 22-second shot here, point of view, pivoting, shifting around, making a split screen podcast of two people that, definitely did not have this conversation, extending scenes and having that consistency. So once again, these models just keep getting better. In fact, they've gotten so good that it was really suggested and analyzed that Taylor Swift used it in some of her recent promo videos. Obviously, shout out to all the Swifties and their new album that they're all excited about right now, including my wife. And so the way that they found out the things that were that really jumped out as being fake, so worth clicking into this, but clearly this stuff's going mainstream now. And the last resource I'll give you is if you want to go play around with any of these, this guy's got a great collection of prompts to go and test out. So if you're wondering, how do I get these scenes to look so great and so beautiful, go and find these and give them a go. So that's your homework. Go play around, test some things out in the video world, and we'll go from there. I hope you have a fantastic month coming up, and I can't imagine what we'll have for you here in a couple of weeks.